then. So it's about extended producer responsibility in general. We will have a look at the timetable, some key points, and suggestion for implementation, and have a special outlook to Italy. So, and we will also share some insights from a web shop we had in Borås here for a couple of weeks ago about EPR and how SMEs sees it. With that said, I will introduce the speakers for today. It is Pascal Campanile. He's an independent consultant with over 30 years experience in industrial R&D and innovation management. He supports company in developing innovative projects and the related business to that. He has majored a varied experience in conveying, developing, managing, and transforming innovations projects related to different industrial applications, covering sustainability, circular economy, and industrial INOs, and also in textiles and clothing. He's a recognized expert in energy technologies and electric vehicles. He works as an independent evaluator in European and national boards for the assignment of public grants. So, and the second speaker of today is Enrico Venturini. He's active in TEX-BREIN and a senior researcher and project manager at Next Technology Techno-Tessil. He has a university degree in economics and business administration and textile technician diploma. Since 1996, he has been holding a position of textile technology specialist and project manager at Next Technology Techno-Tessil. He is also a qualified trainer in the textile sector. He has participated in several European projects and many times as coordinator. With that said, I leave the floor to you, Enrico and Pascal, and stop share my screen so you can share yours.
Thank you very much, Lena Marie. Good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here. We will give you some insights about this EPR, which is the Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme, on different points of view, legislative points of view, but also practical. So I start by sharing my screen. Okay, just confirm you see my screen in full mode. Yeah, okay. So a few words about Next Technology Techno-Tessil. As Lena Maria has anticipated, we are a technological research center based in Prato, in Italy, which is a very important textile manufacturing area. We account for 7,000 companies here in the area, so we are very much involved in textile business, but also in recycling. As you might know, Prato is well known worldwide for the technologies for recycling wool in particular. In Next Technology Techno-Tessil, we support companies by the point of view of the technological innovation. So we provide technological services like R&D and new materials and the development of new machines, but also innovation and technology transfer in favor of our SMEs. And we have also other two entities about which I will talk a little bit later, but we work a lot in circular economy and sustainable textiles, but also in Industry 5.0, chemistry and nanotechnology. We are a small center. We are around 30 people. It's a public-private sector non-profit. And what is important to mention maybe is that we are able to support companies up to the development of large-scale prototypes that can be considered as semi-industrial prototypes. Our services are quite wide. We range from the consultancy in textile technologies to the material modification and functionalization. We have quite a good experience in composite, textile-based composite development, process automation and real-time control, treatment of wastewater from textile sector, design of machinery, and we provide services like LC assessment and carbon footprint assessment for organizations. We are also the managing body of Tuscany Fashion Cluster. It's a cluster accounting for 120 members, more or less, doing technology transfer. So, and we support collaborative research. We include not only textile companies in our cluster, but also other subsectors of the fashion system, like leather goods, footwear, and tanning. Now, let's talk a little bit more in detail about the EPR. What is EPR? As I mentioned before, is the extended producer responsibility regulation for textile and apparel. And the regulation has been, I will talk a little bit about the history of how the regulation was born in Europe. But extended producer responsibility is really an historic turning point for the textile industry of Europe. In fact, it transforms how companies think, produce, and manage their products throughout their entire life cycle. So this means that the EPR is the main driver for textile companies to shift from a linear model to a circular model. So it really emphasizes this transformation and allows for the transition to a circular legislation. Why the European Commission decided to adopt a specific legislation on EPR for textile? First of all, because the amount of waste produced by the textile sector, as you know, both consumers and industry generate high amounts of textile waste. We are the second industry in the world producing pollution and waste materials. There is an extensive use of water and chemicals, and this water is very polluted and is discharged into the environment. And finally, also because of the gas emissions. So this is greenhouse gases, and microfibers are released during the production and also during the maintenance of the textile and apparel products. So this is a critical issue for the environment at European level, but also worldwide. And for this reason, the European Commission included the extension of EPR schemes that were already present for other sectors to textile through the revision of the Waste Framework Directive. The main goal and what is EPR for a manufacturing company is that it established this rule. Every company that inject into the market or place a good textile good on the market is responsible for the collection, treatment, and recycling or preparation for the use of the textile good once it becomes waste. So this affects the end of waste legislation, but also the treatment of the end of waste once it is generated. So I would like to underline the importance of these specific phases of the extended value chain, because the linear value chain was ending in the past once the product was put onto the market. Nowadays, this concept has radically changed because the value chain is not stopped when the product is put on the market, but it's extended until the end of life of the product. So after the disposal of the product, and so when the product becomes a waste, there are other phases in the value chain, and specifically collection, preparation, treatment, and recycling or preparation for reuse. So the EPR implement the concept of taking care of these phases that compose the extended value chain. The aim, of course, is twofold, is to reduce the environmental impact of products and also to push the companies to adopt more circular production and consumption models. This is a slide summarizing a little bit the history of the legislation. So the EPR originates in the Directive 98 of 2008. Then there was a revision in 2018 for preventing waste, increased recycling, and reducing the environmental impacts. In 2022, textile become a priority stream at European level. So the legislation has evolved since then till this year, when on the 1st of January it was put in force the obligation for the separate collection of textiles. And then we will see there is another very important date, which is the 9th of September. The EPR also include, among the other requirements, the eco-design for sustainable product regulation, the so-called EPR. So it means that when companies design a product, they have to adopt specific principles that are related to the directive about eco-design that extend that are based on the durability, recyclability, and the recycled content of the products. So these are also very important elements. I'm not going into details of them now because we are talking about EPR, but also the requirement of the eco-design are a very important component for the design of new textile and apparel products. So I repeat, durability, recyclability, and the content of recycled material. I was telling about the 9th of September 2025. This is another very important date because it sets the European Parliament decision about the regulation obliging textile producers to be responsible for the extended value chain phases I was mentioning before. So for the collection, sorting, and recycling of textiles that are placed on the market. So each member state will have to adopt the legislation deriving by the directive for the implementation of EPR schemes. So producers, companies, will have to be registered, will have to report volumes placed on the market, and of course they also have to pay financial contributions for the treatment of textile waste. We are going to talk a little bit more extensively of this concept, which is called eco-modulation, in the following slides. But this is a very important date to remember. As I mentioned before, why textiles are a priority and who is responsible for the textile waste treatment. We already mentioned that the sector has a very high environmental impact, and the volumes of recycling rates are very low. So the goal here is to increase the amounts of textile waste which is effectively recycled. Just to give you a number, The amount of the closed-loop recycling from fiber to fiber is estimated at around 1% of the total amount of textile waste produced. Then the textile waste stream is indicated, as we mentioned, as a priority by European Commission regulations in 2022. Who are the responsible parties for EPRs? They are producers, but also importers or distributors who place products on the national market. So this means that all organizations putting products, textile products on the market are subject to the EPR regulation. And this regulation will be mandatory for all the member states in this. Yes.
Enrico,
Yes.
maybe it's worth specifying that among the responsible parties, there are also digital marketplaces, not only
Yes.
importers.
Yeah, this is very important. Yes, it's a very important point. We are going to see who is responsible in a moment. And these are the products covered by the regulation. So as you see, almost all of the goods that are produced by the textile and apparel sector, of course, apparel, but also textile accessories like belts, scarves, and other accessories, curtains and blankets, footwear, shoes and footwear of all types and materials, home textiles, and mattresses. What are the obligations for the companies that will be involved by the EPR implementation? First of all, there is a financial contribution, which is called eco-modulations, that is calculated on the volumes placed on the market, but also on other parameters that we are going to see in a moment. Then there is an obligation for reporting and traceability of product and waste flows. So most likely every member state will enforce a national register where companies have to register for tracking data regarding the volumes that are put onto the market and for implementing a traceability system of the way of the products that they produce. But what is important to remember is that companies are responsible also for the entire life cycle of the product, and so also to the destination of the product once it becomes end of life. There are responsibility for the collection, reuse, and preparation for recycling or for reuse, and the recycling itself, and then the eco-modulations according to the EPR textile proposal. So this will increase the number of recyclable materials. It will allow to implement eco-design and specification consistent with the eco-design and the advanced data management, and a more strict collaboration with collection and recycling the supply chains. There is one tool that I would like to mention, but then Pasquale will give you more tips about some tools that can be used by companies at regiogreentex.eu, which is a very important European project for textile sector. On the website, you can download the guide for circularity, but also the guidelines for the textile eco-design, where there are practical directions of how to implement eco-design when a textile company designs a new product, and how to foresee the eco-modulation by the methodology of bonus and malus applied to the adoption of the eco-design principles. About eco-modulation, as I mentioned before, eco-modulation is a financial, let's say, parameter that allow to award virtuous product and penalize not virtuous products like fast fashion. So there is a mechanism of collecting fees that incentivize circular design and penalize unsustainable consumption models. So virtual products that are designed through the eco-design concepts like durability, reparability, and recyclability will see a reduction in the amount of the financial fee that they have to pay, while fast fashion, so low recycling value, will see an increase in the fees that they have to pay. So the eco-modulation is a very complicated system that is it cannot be touched into his details in a few minutes, but is a very important system that transforms sustainability from a cost into a competitive advantage, rewarding companies that invest in circularity. So what is important to mention is that companies putting goods on the market have to pay this eco-modulation. About one small point that I want to make is that for the implementation of EPR schemes, some organizations are created or will be created in the near future in all member states. These organizations are called PRO, Product Responsible Organization, and we will see one of them here in Italy, the TEX-BREIN consortium for which Pasquale is working. And they will take care of the implementation of the EPR scheme. So these consortiums gather companies that are subject to the EPR implementation, to the eco-modulation fee, and to the other requirements and obligations that the EPR legislation is putting on the shoulders of the companies. Well, this model is not new because there is a pioneer, which is the French company called Refashion. Refashion, as I said, is a pioneer because France was the first country with a mandatory textile extended producer responsibility. So this consortium is active since 2007 under the Code de l'Environnement. Refashion is an organization accredited by the states, and it collects contributions, financing for the separate collection and sorting, and support for reuse and recycling. And it also deploy a monitoring activity, the obligation to monitor and report flows according to the French national EPR framework. So Refashion is the pioneer, as I said, and is a benchmark for the other consortia that or organizations that are under creation. Well, Refashion in France is a national organization. For instance, the model that has been adopted here in Italy is a bit different because there is not a single consortium, but there are many consortia. But more or less the mechanism under which this organization work is the same. So, of course, what are the functions of the French model is to push eco-modulation, to manage the incentives, so eco-design, durability, and recycled content, develop the network. Another very important function is the growing supply chain. So there is also an investment that the PROs are doing on technologies for mechanical and chemical recycling, for instance, in order to increase the volume of waste that will be recycled. And then the governance. So there is a traceability and transparency for the data related to the waste that is produced. And so this will anticipate the structure that the EU is putting in place. My last slide is about the challenges for small textile businesses, because the EPR is a regulation, as I mentioned before, that is going to impact companies or organizations putting products into the market. So this means that the main organizations that will be touched by this new regulation are the fashion brands or big multinational or big companies that produce garments that is put on the market under different brands. But this is not, the regulation is not only impacting big organizations, but also small companies will be let's say, affected because of some obligations that they have to fulfill. First of all, there is an administrative burden, so companies have to monitor and declare the volumes, materials, and the traceability of resources that or products that they produce. They have to invest for eco-design, for using recycled materials, and also for some logistic on the end of life products. There is an uncertainty about the amount of the fee that has to be paid. So there is a difficulty in estimating costs and planning until the national EPR scheme is clearly operational. And this is not the case, for instance, in Italy, while we have seen that in France, the system is already in place since several years. In Italy, as still to be effective. There are not so many infrastructures able to manage the collection and recycling of textile waste. Another problem is the fast fashion models. So, as you know, fast fashion is based on low cost and high volume production. And so these will affect small companies that work for the fast fashion brands, because also small companies will be charged with higher costs for the implementation of EPR schemes. And finally, the supply chain coordination. So this will involve the suppliers, logistic providers, and distributors for the enforcement of traceability system and the amount of resources that will be generated. So these are more or less the challenges for small medium enterprises. Now, having said this, I thank you very much for the attention. These are the references if you want to be in contact with me. I stop sharing the screen, and at this point, maybe we can talk a little bit more about the situation and the Italian model. And for this, I leave the floor to Pasquale for some final considerations. Thank you very much. And of course, I stay available for any question you might have. Thank you, Pasquale.
Yes, before giving some information on the situation in Italy, I would like to come back to the general overview that Enrico prepared, just to say that so far we have a revised directive that is been approved by the Parliament, and in the directive all the elements that Enrico described are defined as general rules. No, so who are the obliged subjects, which products are in scope, where to pay the fee, the existence of the need to create a producer responsibility organization, and so on. Then, from now on, it's on the member state to define the local definition of the local definition of this EPR system that will include specific elements that can differ in some aspects from state by state. Then, and this will bring to the final level, so the final definition of the European, let's say, circular system across Europe. So the Waste Framework Directive defines a minimum framework for harmonization. The final framework will be the output of the definition at the member states. So, as Enrico said, there are only 4 countries in Europe that have EPR schemes in place. France is at the forefront since many years, so 18 years. But EPR scheme is active also in the Netherlands, in Latvia, and in Hungary at the moment. In all other countries, discussions are more or less mature. In Italy, there is a decree that is almost ready and is expected to come into force at the beginning of 2026. So it's very close. So the text of the decree for the implementation of the EPR scheme in Italy is totally defined. And then go back to the European situation. So it will be important that in the definition of these national schemes, there is as much as possible harmonization across Europe. Why? Because the textile business is European, is global. So many players have interest that go beyond borders. So producer that sell in different member states, or producer with value chain that are located in different member states, and so on. So it's of paramount importance to have a simple system with clear rules, as uniform as possible across Europe. As TEX-BREIN in Italy, we are active, even if we don't have an EPR scheme in force. We are active since 3 years, and maybe I can just share my screen and give you a couple of slides related to our organization. And I say that I don't know if I can, okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do. So just go through.
Yeah. And just as a few slides to say what is a producer responsibility responsible of, no? Typically, the products that Enrico mentioned, so not only clothing, but also, let's say, linen or shoes or whatever, they are produced, they are purchased, they go into use, and that certain part of their they stop their useful life and they become waste. They are conferred to a bin or whatever because the person that purchases this good is no more interested to use it, and so they end their usable life. At that moment in time, they become waste. And then it starts a process where these waste are collected. And since the 1st of January 2025, the collection of textile waste can no more be into the general bins, must be made separately. So textile waste must be collected separately in order to be either reused or recycled. And according to the waste hierarchy, the priority is to reuse, but the experience of these many years of collection and sorting of textile waste in Europe tells us that on average, no more than 50% of what is separate collected is suitable to reuse. So obviously, reuse must be ensured and improved. However, also we need to implement also a system for recycling that is to cover the remaining 50%, 60% of the material that is separately collected. And so this is the activity producer responsibility is responsible for. Why to create a producer responsibility organization? Because the Waste Framework Directive imposes that the producers are responsible for the end of waste, for the circularity, for the management of the textile products after they become a waste, but they can fulfill their obligation not necessarily individually, but they can group into collective organizations that are called producer responsibility organizations. So the producer responsibility organizations are responsible on behalf of their members for the obligation of the members. For instance, TEX-BREIN, that the organization I work for, is today has more than 100 members, and so TEX-BREIN is responsible for the obligation of these more than 100 members. So that and is responsible to take care of all the obligation and to report to the government of the results, to trace all the activities, and to provide information on what they're doing. So I'm going through very quickly. So what a PRO organization typically does. So obviously I'm talking about TEX-BREIN, but every organization is responsible for textile waste management, but also to support eco-design, and also to carry out research and development, that is to contribute to the development of more and more advanced technologies for preparation for recycling, for reparation for reuse, for recycling, and so technologies that enable the circularity. And also we perform activities related to consultancy and compliance and so on. It's very important, as I mentioned, it's very important that we all work for a fully integrated and harmonized European circular system. And to this end, we participate as TEX-BREIN to several important activities at European level, including the rehabs and the project that started this year, that is called Circulatex, that is funded by the European Commission and is dedicated exactly to how to develop guidelines for the harmonization of the EPR schemes across Europe. In this project, there are 19 partners from several European countries, representative of all the actors, of all the stakeholders of the value chain, and we are actively working in this period in mapping the gaps towards circularity across Europe. So TEX-BREIN, we have an operational business model as a PRO. It means that the PRO, when adopts the operational business model, it has takes also the operational responsibility of implementing the activities. So we have a value chain, a supply chain of sorters, recyclers, logistics operators, and warehouses, and so on, that we use for our activities. Other consortia may opt, other responsibility organization may opt for the financial model, where their responsibility is to collect the fees that are given by the producer responsibility organization, by the producers, and fund the supply chain that so pays for the operation of the supply chain that is not under the supervision of the PRO. So in the operational model, there is a direct control, direct involvement in the operational activity. In the financial model, this is just a model that is where the PRO deals with collecting the funds, paying for the operation, and monitoring the outputs. And so it's very important that this is maybe the last comment I would like to make. In order to ensure that the activities of the producer responsibility organization are totally qualitative, but also monitored and according to high-level standards, it's very important to introduce detailed granular traceability of all the operation and control of all the players that are contracted along the value chain. This is extremely important to be totally fair and totally, let's say, responsible for all the operations and the materials we are processing. So I would like to stop here. And so the presentation contains a lot of information on TEX-BREIN, but this presentation will be made available by the organizer to all of you. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Enrico and Pascal. And we are in a time hurry here, but I would like to just quickly share some slides with you regarding the workshop we made. Let's see, so I put it right here. I think it's this one. And so, and yes, yeah. During the TEX-BREIN project, we arrange learning expeditions, and the next one will be in March to Prato Familcao. But a couple of weeks ago, we did one in Borås, and we had a workshop there with about 35 participants. It was a mix of SMEs and textile clusters, and no specific experts on EPR, I need to say here. And not all of the companies are directly putting products on the market. It was more like yarn spinners and textile producers and so. But of course, all will be affected of these EPRs in questioning and so. I think I jump over this slide. And the purpose with the SWOT was to find out and understand more about which challenges and possibilities a company sees in the implementation and maintenance of EPR. And to find if there is any different perspectives on EPR in Europe or we are in line. And also to give participants opportunity to reflect and discuss EPR with each others. So we had group discussions, and based on that, we can see that what SMEs and the cluster sees as strengths is increased awareness about sustainability, both among the companies, but also among consumers. So and also that it could be less overproduction due to the regulations and so and yeah. And clear rules and could strengthen competitiveness if you follow the rules and you can be more clear about your sustainability work. And it could also expand lifetimes of textile products as when companies have to take responsibility over what happens with the products after use. They are encouraged to develop higher quality, repairability, and recyclability. So is it not just only creates environmental benefits, but it can also create value for customers through better and more sustainable textile products. Weaknesses then. Yeah, there is a worry about that it will only be a European thing, that it as the rules applies only in the European Union. There could be risk that no possibility to control or monitor the processes that take place outside the Union. And it might be a gap between what the European Union wants and what can actually be influenced in practice. And this with fees, as Enrico mentioned, is a big worry. High costs and administration could be, especially for small companies, a tough puzzle to work with. Then we have this with harmonizations, that if the countries don't have the same type of EPR, that could lead to fragmentation, and that could make it difficult for companies. And maybe a too stiff framework can hinder development. Looking at threats then, to continue the risky side, there are several significant risks associated with the introduction of EPR. And one of them is that it's not will function as was initiated, and could lead to overregulation and unclear import rules. And also this with due to the high costs and fees and so, some SMEs might go bankruptcy about it. And then the worry about the customers, are they willing to pay? As often in the end we select by price. And it might be a lack of information and transparency due to poor communication and so. Opportunities then, as the last. Producer responsibility has the potential to transform the textile sector by creating new and more sustainable value chains. When producers are given clear responsibility for the entire life cycle of the products, opportunities for new businesses and business models are growing. And this can drive widespread innovation, both in terms of new technologies and the development of more and sustainable resource-efficient products. And also it could create new jobs and reduce emissions through the work, and it could also strengthen the profile and market advantage. With that said, I shorten up a little bit here my presentation due to that we are in a hurry. I would like to see if there are any questions. So I can see you have answered this one with a question about how much, more about this eco-modulation concept and information there, and you have shared it in the chat, Enrico. And then I have a question here, because we talked about this, that it's newly released by the Commission, and the timetable, when should the EPR system be up and running for the companies? When should they be ready, so to say? Anyone wants to answer that one?
Half 27. Because there will be 30 months for the member states to implement the full details of the, let's say, of the system. So it will be operational since then, but In the meantime, there is a lot of work to do in order to set the rules, to define, to organize things, and so on. So there is the definition of this framework takes time.
Yeah. It's huge work to do, and 2027 for bigger companies, and I think that the smaller ones have a little bit more time, so something during 2028, I guess. Anything else someone wants to add or so? Otherwise, we are quite happy for today, and I would like to thank you so much for joining this very important webinar, which will affect us all, I think. So enjoy your day and be in touch for the next webinar.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye. Thank you,
much.
Lena Marie. Bye bye. Bye bye.